They told me Grandma was in the hospital, but she was never sick. While I stayed behind out of love, my entire family sailed away on a luxury cruise without me. What I discovered next wasn't just a lie. It was a decades-long scheme that robbed me of more than just a vacation. The moment I saw the cruise photo, my stomach dropped. There they were. My parents, my sister Emma, my aunts and uncles, all grinning beneath a bright Caribbean sky, champagne flutes in hand. The caption read, "Best vacation ever. So blessed to have such an amazing family. Blue heart #cruise life." Family. The same family who told me just hours earlier that Grandma had been rushed to the hospital. The same family I canceled my trip for so I could be by her side. I pulled over on the side of the highway, my hands trembling around the steering wheel. For a moment I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe they scheduled the post in advance? Maybe this was a throwback? But then I saw the timestamp. It was live. Real. Now, I tried calling Mom. Straight to voicemail. Dad? Same. Emma? Blocked me. I turned the car around and drove straight to the hospital, heart pounding, hoping this was some cruel misunderstanding. But when I reached the admissions desk and gave them Grandma's name, the nurse raised her brows. There's no record of anyone by that name admitted today. It was then that reality hit me. They lied. Not just about the cruise. Not just about Grandma. They'd built a full story. Sick grandmother, urgent care. We need you. Just to keep me from going with them. And they used the person I loved most in the world to do it. I raced to Grandma's house, my face still wet from tears. I couldn't stop. Her porch light was on. She opened the door wearing her usual cardigan and a warm smile. "Tara, sweetheart. What's going on?" I collapsed into her arms, sobbing. "They said you were in the hospital," I choked out. "They told me you were sick. That you needed me." She led me inside, confused and deeply concerned. I told her everything about the phone call, about the cruise photo, about Emma blocking me. And then I asked the question that burned the most. Why would they do this to me? Grandma's face darkened. "Your mother asked me to lie," she said softly. "She called last week. Said if you came by I should pretend I was ill. I told her I wouldn't do it." I sat in stunned silence as Grandma continued. "I didn't know they were still going through with it. I thought if I refused, they'd change their minds. But they hadn't. They'd simply gone on without me, without hesitation, without remorse." That's when Grandma's tone changed. She stood up and walked toward the hall closet. When she returned, she held a thick manila envelope in her hands. "I wasn't going to show you this yet," she said, placing it on the table. "But it's time you knew." Inside were bank statements, printed emails, and handwritten notes. A paper trail of betrayal stretching back years. The pages inside Grandma's envelope felt heavier than paper. They were receipts of everything I'd only ever suspected but never dared to confirm. Proof that my parents had been favoring Emma for years. Birthday gifts twice the price of mine. College tuition payments made in full, while I juggled scholarships and side jobs. Private school invoices. Dance lessons. Wedding bills. Even spa days. All marked paid from trust. I looked up at Grandma. My voice cracked. "What trust?" Her lips pressed into a line. "Your grandfather, my late husband, left a fund when he passed. It was meant to be divided equally between his grandchildren when they turned 30. Your mother convinced my brother Michael, the trustee, to give her early access. Said it was for your benefit." She paused. "But Tara, the money didn't go to you. It went to Emma." I sat back in the chair, the room spinning. "So, while I worked 3 jobs in college, while I skipped vacations to help with bills, they were spending my money on Emma?" Grandma nodded slowly. "Over $500,000. Your share's been drained. Meanwhile, you've been left with credit card debt and student loans." My hand flew to my mouth. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the intentionality. Every excuse, every "we're tight on money right now" moment was a lie. They weren't struggling. They were strategic. Then Grandma said something that chilled me to the bone. "And the cruise? That wasn't paid for with their own money either." I blinked. "What?" "I gave them $15,000 2 months ago. I told them it was for all of you. I wanted one last big trip before I update my will. I made it clear the money was only for a vacation if you and Emma were both invited." I felt nauseous. "They used my share to upgrade their cabins, didn't they?" Grandma nodded. "And book excursions." The diamond necklace I gave your mom to pass down to both of you? She already gave it to Emma. Quietly. No ceremony. Just slipped it into her suitcase. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. She didn't even hesitate. That's when Grandma leaned in close. I've been keeping records, Tara. Not just for my own clarity, but in case it ever came to this. I hoped they'd come around. I truly did. But some people only show you their true face when they think they've gotten away with everything. She stood and placed a hand on my shoulder. They think you'll stay quiet. That you'll swallow this betrayal like every other. I met her gaze. They're wrong. Just then my phone buzzed. It was Emma. Mom said you're spreading lies. Why can't you just be happy for once instead of trying to ruin everything? I stared at the message, my hands trembling. Not with sadness this time, but with resolve. I looked at Grandma. It's time they heard the truth. And this time, the whole world's going to hear it too. I had never hit post with more conviction in my life. Funny how being told Grandma was hospitalized was just a cover to exclude me from the family vacation. Funnier still, the cruise was paid for with money Grandma gave, meant to include everyone. Instead, I was lied to and left behind. Attached was the now infamous photo Emma had posted. Everyone in sundresses and sunglasses, champagne flutes raised. Best vacation ever. The irony now burned like acid. Within an hour, the post exploded. Old friends, distant relatives, even former co-workers I hadn't spoken to in years, all commenting, "This is shocking. I always wondered why they treated you so differently. You were the backbone of that family, and this is how they repay you?" My inbox filled with private messages. Several cousins reached out, sharing their own stories, quiet moments they'd noticed growing up. How Emma always got the spotlight. How I was always the helper, never the helped. It was validating but short-lived. At exactly 2:13 p.m. my phone rang. "Dad." Against every instinct I answered. "Tara," he barked.
No hello.
"Take that post down. Immediately. You're humiliating this family." I kept my voice steady. "No, you humiliated this family. When you lied about Grandma. When you stole money. When you excluded me. That's not how it happened," he snapped. "You don't understand what was going on behind the scenes." "Oh, you mean how you used my trust fund for Emma's private school and her wedding?" I asked calmly. "Or how Grandma's vacation fund got you a balcony suite?" There was a beat of silence. Then his voice lowered, dangerous. "You're going to regret this. You have no idea what's at stake. There are things you don't know, things we've protected you from." A chill ran through me. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm warning you. If you keep pushing this, you won't like what you find. Your mother and I." I hung up. The illusion of safety, the false comfort of family, had been stripped away. I immediately called Grandma. She picked up on the first ring. "He says they've been protecting me." "From what?" Grandma exhaled slowly. "Go check your email." Minutes later, I was staring at a scanned legal document. A trust agreement dated 25 years ago. And it hit me like a freight train. My grandfather had left over $2 million to be divided between the grandchildren. Half of it was meant for me. And it was gone. Line by line I traced the theft. Emma's tuition. Her wedding. Her new car. And thousands, hundreds of thousands, in unaccounted transfers. They had stolen my future. And then another email arrived. From my Uncle Michael, the original trustee. "Tara, I can't stay silent anymore. They told me it was for your benefit. I see now that was a lie. I'm attaching every record I have. I'm so sorry." I sat back in my chair, stunned. They didn't just leave me off a vacation. They robbed me blind for decades. And now? Now I had everything I needed to burn it all down legally. I don't remember standing up. One second I was staring at the documents in disbelief. The next I was pacing my apartment, heart pounding like a war drum. They had taken everything. My trust. My future. My dignity. And now they were trying to take my silence. But this time, I wasn't the scared, obedient daughter. I was the woman they had underestimated, one lie too many. Grandma called again. Her voice was calm but steely. "They're at the family company right now," she said. "Security just called me. Your father's cleaning out his office." "What?" "He's not just scared, Tara. He's preparing to disappear. I've already notified the police and the FBI. I blinked. The FBI? Trust fund theft. Offshore accounts. Embezzlement. This is no longer a family dispute. It's financial crime. A beat passed. And Tara, you need to go down there. Today. You're the controlling shareholder now. I had the documents filed this morning. I grabbed my keys. Outside, the skies had turned gray, ominous. The kind of sky that whispered, "Storm's coming." When I pulled into the parking lot of the family company, I saw them immediately. My parents. Emma. Arms full of boxes. Walking fast. Talking faster. I parked, stepped out, and walked directly toward them. Dad froze first. "Tara," he said, feigning warmth. "What are you doing here?" I didn't blink. Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing. Emma snorted. "This isn't your place. You don't even work here." I reached into my bag, pulled out the document Grandma had emailed me, and held it up. "Actually, as of this morning, I'm the majority shareholder. Grandma transferred her controlling interest to me." Silence. My father's face drained of color. Emma looked like she'd just been slapped with a legal textbook. "You can't be serious," Mom whispered. "Oh, I am. And I'm especially interested in the contents of those boxes you're loading into your car. Any chance they include evidence of wire fraud? Identity theft? Grand larceny?" Before they could answer, flashing red and blue lights lit up the parking lot. Police cruisers. Unmarked sedans. Agents in jackets that read FBI. Emma burst into tears. Dad's shoulders stiffened. Mom just stared at me. "Everything we did," she said bitterly, "we did for the family." "No," I corrected. "You did it for yourselves. And now you're going to answer for it." The agents began to speak with them, reading rights, confirming names, identifying evidence. I stood quietly, arms crossed. Across the lot, I spotted Grandma in the back seat of Uncle Michael's car, nodding solemnly as we made eye contact. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen, powerful, clear. They had tried to erase me from the cruise, but instead they'd handed me the wheel. And now, I was steering this ship straight into justice. 3 weeks after the confrontation in the parking lot, my world had settled into a strange, empowering silence. The headlines in the local business papers were clinical. CEO resigns amid financial misconduct investigation. Family-owned business faces internal audit after trust fund dispute. But the truth was far less sterile. Inside the company, whispers swirled like smoke. Longtime employees walked on eggshells, unsure if their loyalty had been misplaced, or if their jobs were next. I understood that fear. I had lived in it for years. Now I was the one standing at the head of the table. "Let's be clear," I said during our first all-hands meeting. "We're not here to gossip about a family drama. We're here to rebuild this company, with transparency, accountability, and integrity." The room had gone still. Then someone started clapping. Others followed. And just like that, a new chapter began. But not everyone was ready to let go of the past. Emma. She had vanished after the FBI questioned her, likely under the advice of her attorney. I hadn't heard from her since that text. "You'll never win." Turns out I didn't have to win. She had already lost by choosing their side over the truth. Uncle Michael, meanwhile, became my unexpected ally. He testified voluntarily, submitted full documentation, and even apologized face to face. "I should have said something years ago," he told me. "But I was afraid of your parents." "You don't need to explain," I replied. "They're very good at making people feel small." "Not anymore," he said. "You made sure of that." With his help and Grandma's unshakable support, we initiated civil proceedings to recover the stolen funds. Most of it was gone, spent on Emma's tuition, weddings, cars, spa retreats, a cruise that now felt like a symbol of rot beneath all their smiles. But we froze the offshore accounts in time. That alone recovered over $700,000. We redirected it into a new fund, one that would support scholarships for underprivileged students. We called it the Tara Initiative. 1 week later, I received an email from a former high school classmate. "I saw the news. I always wondered how you stayed so kind, even when people treated you like background noise. You deserve everything coming your way now." I cried for 20 minutes after that. Not out of pain but out of release. I wasn't healing alone either. Grandma's health had never been better. We'd started a weekly tradition. Sunday morning pancakes and fresh coffee. Her will had been updated, her affairs now in order. You know, she said one morning, they never thought you'd find out. That's how arrogant they were. I sipped my coffee and smiled. They underestimated the wrong woman. She reached across the table and took my hand.
No, Tara.
They underestimated the right one. 2 months after I officially took over the company, I got a letter. Not an email. Not a text. An actual letter, handwritten in careful script, tucked inside an ivory envelope with no return address. I knew the handwriting before I even opened it. Emma. Tara. I don't know where to begin, or if you'll even read this. I've made mistakes. Big ones. I was selfish, insecure, and too caught up in being the favorite to realize how much damage I was doing. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm in therapy now, trying to understand how I became that person. Mom and Dad still don't see it. They say I've betrayed the family. But maybe the betrayal started a long time ago. Maybe it was when they made us compete for scraps of love. If you never want to see me again, I get it. But thank you. Because by standing up for yourself, you made me realize how far I'd fallen. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it up and placed it in my desk drawer, next to the trust fund documents and court filings. Because while I didn't know if I could forgive her yet, I knew one thing. She finally saw the truth. That mattered. Back at the company, we were preparing for our annual retreat, something my parents had always used as a glorified vacation. Not anymore. I restructured it into a leadership and ethics summit. I invited guest speakers, hosted open forums, and encouraged every employee, from interns to execs, to share their experiences. For the first time, people felt heard. During one breakout session, a senior manager stood up. "I've worked here 15 years, she said, voice trembling. And this is the first time I don't feel like I'm one misstep away from being discarded. Thank you, Tara, for making us feel safe." Her words stayed with me, because that's what I had never been, safe in my own family, in my own career, in my own skin. But now I was rewriting all of it. On the last night of the retreat, I stood before the team and raised my glass. To survival, I said, pausing for effect. To standing up when the world says, sit down. To being told you're difficult, and realizing it's just another word for strong. This company was built on one family's name. But going forward, it'll be carried by all of ours, equally, honestly, and with purpose. The applause was thunderous. But even louder than that was the peace I felt afterward. A stillness that came not from vengeance but from validation. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to see my parents suffer. They'd already done that to themselves. And me? I'd finally stepped into a future that had always been mine. I just had to fight like hell to claim it. 6 months after the cruise that changed everything, I returned to the beach. Not for a family vacation but for my own celebration. No lies.
No manipulasten.
Just me, a few close friends, and Grandma sitting beneath a wide umbrella in a floppy straw hat, sipping iced tea like a queen. "I never thought I'd live to see the day," she said, eyes twinkling, "when the quiet granddaughter turned out to be the one with the loudest legacy." I laughed. Not because it was funny but because it was true. In the distance, the ocean glittered. It looked endless, just like the possibilities ahead. Since taking over the company, I'd implemented not just reforms but revolutions. We launched a scholarship program in my grandfather's name, started financial wellness classes for employees' families, created a whistleblower protection system so no one ever had to be afraid again. And the most radical change? Transparency. Everyone at every level knew exactly where the money went and why. For the first time, the company wasn't built on favoritism or family ties. It was built on trust. That same week, the court finalized the civil judgment against my parents. They were ordered to repay over $700,000 in embezzled funds. Emma had testified. And though our relationship would never go back to what it was, we'd exchanged a few emails. Polite. Honest.
Tentative.
Healing maybe. As for my parents, they relocated to a small town in another state. No one really knew what they were doing now. But I did know this. They no longer had access to my accounts, my trust, or me. Their greatest punishment wasn't prison or lawsuits. It was watching me thrive without them. One evening, as I watched the sunset paint the sky in gold and fire, Grandma leaned over and whispered, "You were never meant to be the family scapegoat, Tara. You were always the storm they thought they could contain." I felt tears prick my eyes, but this time they weren't from pain. They were from peace. Because the girl who once canceled her vacation to sit by a hospital bed that never existed was now the woman building a future on truth. No more proving my worth. No more begging to be included. No more playing small to make others comfortable. I was free. And not just financially, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. As I took a final walk along the beach, waves brushing against my ankles, I turned to face the horizon and whispered, "Thank you for breaking me just enough to rebuild," because in the end, that cruise didn't take me down. It launched the greatest journey of my life.